looking at 2021 and also praying together for 2022. This is really, really, really very exciting. I want to give special thanks and recognition to Lorraine. Lorraine, thank you very, very much for this idea. Lorraine always plants good ideas in my head. Lorraine is the CEO of ELLE Epic Events, and she does really, really amazing events. This lady has got genius ideas. And I remember earlier, Lorraine said we need to have a service that helps us to settle 2021 down. I really believed that COVID would end with 2020. And I was very ready by this time of the year to say we used to have something called COVID. But guess what? It's still here with us. And so Lorraine said, why don't we get together and be able to mourn with those who mourn and rejoice with those who rejoice, to just be able to look at the year for what it was. I know many people who, for them, Christmas was a painful reminder of things that they lost. And if we let this year go by like a sheep in the night, we will have left a lot of people without closure. And because of that reason, Lorraine, I want to say a special thanks to you that we are having this service today. I told her, why not tomorrow? Why not on the 1st? Why not? She said, Percy, it is 30th, Thursday, 30th December. And she even asked me, do we change it? I said, no, Lorraine, if you said 30th, we'll do it on the 30th. And so I'm very, very excited, Lorraine, that we can be able to do this. The idea of this evening is to be able to share our stories, all of us, and to just be able to hear what did not work for you, that you can be able to live on the 20th, what was very ugly for you, that you can be able to share with us so that we support you. But also there are those for who 2021 was amazing. I mean, God spoke to you in the most beautiful ways. God gave you an idea. You really flourished. It's not all stories that are bad. So there are good stories and then there are ugly stories. But such is life, that we want to be able to share in the good and the bad together. And therefore, and then to be able to say together, what do you wish for 2022? So we will be finishing this meeting in about an hour and a half with prayer and looking at those things which you wish for God to do for you in this coming year. It is possible that if you went through a difficult year, you're discouraged, you are thinking that God would not be able to hear your prayers, you're afraid to pray, you're afraid to ask God. We are here to tell you as your pastors, Grace, myself, and Martin, that that is not the God we serve. The God we serve is the God of hope. The God we serve is the God of new beginnings. The God we serve is the God of, even though he allows pain, he really puts us on a platform for success. That is our God. And that is the God that we want to appeal to this evening, so that as we look to springing into the next year, then we'll be going into that space with hope. So how we are doing this is that we're going to let Lorraine convene us together. We have three primary panelists. That is Pastor Grace of Karen, Pastor Martin of Mavuno Mombasa, and Pastor Tim of Mavuno Lavington. They'll be the three primary panelists as we walk through the theme of the good, the bad, and the ugly. But it doesn't mean that the rest of us are a listening audience. It just means that there are specific questions which Lorraine will direct to these principal panelists. But the rest of us, really, it's a testimony service. So as she asks these questions to these panelists, the rest of us will feed in. We want to hear all your stories, if it's possible, to hear what it is about, what was good for you, what was bad for you, what was ugly for you. And then we will, all of us, we will ask us to put down what is your wish for 2022. And we would like each and every one of you to be able to put that wish down, however humongous or big it is. If you're still asking God for your 20 billion, please put it down, because that is what we would like to ask God for. And then I will do a short devotional towards the end. I think Lorraine will direct where that comes in. And then we'll end up by praying. The three of us, as we've been praying at the morning prayers, will come together and pray for those things which you have entrusted God to. We want to endorse them all together as we look to spring into the next year. So very close to 8 o'clock, then we'll be winding up, praying that the Lord will hear those prayers and answer them accordingly. So it's my great privilege now to introduce to us Lorraine Karuga, to kindly come and direct us as we begin together. Lorraine, karibu sana.
Asante sana. Thank you very much, Basi. I'm very blessed and privileged to have you as my spiritual father to walk with me in life, and very excited about this evening. Thank you to the pastors for endorsing this and saying, let's do this. When I told Pastor Grace on Sunday, she's like, when do you want to come and talk about this? So that is the kind of people I've surrounded myself with, and I feel very, very, very privileged to have gone back to church in 2020. I'm one of those who went back to church. So those are some of the things we will talk about in this session. So even as we begin, those of you who are my friends on Facebook, you remember this prayer that I put out the other day that I watched in a movie. I hope Pastor Grace, you got to watch it finally. But when I saw the title, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, no, it is not from the 1966 movie by Clint Eastwood and the others. This is really about us, sitting and enjoying and really discussing. It is okay. We shall cry at some point in this session. We shall laugh at some point in the sessions, but it's really an authentic space, a very lively space for us to be in. And feel free. Yep. This is one of those Zooms where we don't expect you to be, all the time muted. We want you to participate. We want you to raise your hand and say, hey, we are very blessed to have pastors I love so much because they are so free. And sometimes I'm like, are you guys pastors, by the way? Like, we end at theology school, they are very amazing and easy people, and real, and we will have a very real conversation. So even as we begin this evening, as Pastor Ondachi has mentioned, none of us, even those folks at WHO, I promise you, when they were sitting telling us, oh, COVID, this, COVID, the other, I don't think they thought 3 years down the road, we shall still be dealing with this Chinese thing, as we used to call it back then. And I don't know what you're thinking about it, I remember when Pastor Grace in 2019, I reminded her on Sunday, she really used to ask us to pray. And I'm thinking, what's wrong with this chick? What is she talking about? What visions are these she's having? This thing is only in China. It is not here. It is not coming to us. And I remember one Sunday when she told all of us, those of us in Mavuno Crossroads, to all go on our knees and pray, and we all wondered, then bang, March 2020, and for sure it was announced, and it has become a part of our lives, wearing masks and social distancing and name it, it has become a part of our lives. So as we quickly begin this, I wanted to just say this quick prayer exactly as it was in the movie, because I think it is a very powerful prayer. Dearest Father and Almighty Creator, we ask for your grace despite our pride, your forgiveness despite our doubts. Most of all, Lord, we ask for your love to soothe us through these dark times. May we face whatever is to come, whether in 2022, in the last 2 days of 2021, in your divine will, with courage and open hearts of acceptance. Amen. I don't know what you think about it, but I think it's such a powerful prayer. As we even begin again, I'm going to ask us to have a moment of silence, because we've lost so many people this year. This morning, I lost one of my lecturers. So it's just been, a season of loss after loss after loss. So I just invite us to have a moment of silence to remember those that have left us. Thank you very much. So over to our panelists, and I'll ask Pastor Tim, I don't know whether you have somebody else helping with the co-host so that you can put them on the screen, even as I introduce them. We've got Pastor Martin. Now, I'll tell you about Pastor Martin. Pastor Martin, I've met him at 4 a.m., not really in person, but in our prayers every morning, the last couple of months at 4 a.m. And this man is full of wisdom, grace. And those guys who speak directly to God, it is Pastor Martin Kamau. Pastor Martin Kamau is based in Mombasa. He's married to Faith. He's got 2 kids by Rimo, 13, and Kenna, 11. He's an IT consultant and a part-time lecturer. He loves creating what he wants, and he believes, and he's working at it. What did COVID teach him? COVID taught Pastor Martin, who was not a pastor in 2020, by the way, that at the end of it all, it is all about God. Karibu sana, Pastor Martin. Next, we've got Pastor Timo, my brother from American land, Pastor Timothy Kaburu Rusha. He's a father of 2 beautiful twin daughters. He's a husband of 1. Pastor Timo, I don't know whether you plan to have a second one when you say 1. Wanchiko Kaburu. What drives him? Seeing relationships and families work. And his greatest lesson this year has been make plans, but hold on to them loosely. Boy, hasn't that been what we have learned this year. And then the third panelist is our very own lady, the only lady in this panelist, Pastor Grace Dege. Now, another lady I know who directly speaks to God, who directly saw that pandemic coming and told us, you guys be ready, something is coming. In fact, Pastor Grace, when I was watching that movie, Don't Look Up, I had you in mind, you know, you must have been that professor who was saying something is crashing to earth, let's be ready for it. Yeah, Pastor Grace Dege is a lead pastor at Mavuno Karen and an amazing woman of God. Karibuni sana, our pastors.
Thank you.
Karibu sana. So we will start with March 2020. I don't know where you were, but that announcement came forth and COVID was here. What was it like for you, Pastor Grace?
All right, I'm not muted, right? Good evening, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Lorraine. I want to say, I saw it coming. China could not have suffered alone. There's nothing that China had done to upset God. But the rest of the world was not as quick to respond to China. And I remember that is the time when I went to church and I told everybody during the prayer out time, let's get on our knees. And I think I remember that day the senior pastor was in church. Like, let's get on our knees and pray for China. Don't you think they're Christians? I remember asking them. They are Christians just like us who pray to God. And this has happened to them and they're falling and dying on the street because the pandemic has taken a lot of learning. We have learned how to treat it as to treat COVID as we are moving. And so we stand at a better place. We've stopped putting on the PPEs that people were putting on in the hospitals to go. They couldn't visit people. People visit people, but you just know that you need to put on your mask well. So I think for me, I knew that it was I immediately felt there is something God was just about to teach the world. Yeah, I think I can stop there.
Fantastic. All right. Pastor Martin, Mombasa, we watched you guys. Man, you guys, this thing hit you hard, We watched the ferries and all the drama and the Kuchapwa curfew, What was it like for you guys in Mombasa?
I think for most people in Mombasa, we were still in unbelief. We felt we were really, really far from it. For me, okay, I think I was in denial. That's all I can say. At that time, I was too caught up in business. The business was really at its high tide, when everything is working out for you. And so when you hear that there's something that is going to bring you down, you do not believe that that's true. And that happened for most of the people around me. They would actually say it is a disease for the Chinese. Us black skin, we are too hardy for this thing. And so there was a lot of denial. And I can tell you that even through the 3rd month, there was still a lot of denial and people were dying. I remember when now I accepted to listen to God, and that was in January. Before, I think the curfew was implemented in March.
In March, yes.
Yeah. So in January, I accepted to listen to God, and when that happened, I started rallying people to fast and pray. I started people. This thing is going to really hit us hard. We are going to lose friends. We are going to lose relatives. We are going to lose family, and we take a stand. And so I have the alumni of the people we were fellowshipping with in the university, around 200 people. And we formed a prayer group. And what we would do is every day there would be at least 5 people praying, for Kenya, just praying for Africa, praying for the world. Yeah, so yes, that's how I responded when I woke up to it and I realized this thing is going to hit us hard. And for me, it hit me directly in my business, like immediately, it didn't even time like, oh, okay, your business is going to roll down into a slow, it will slumber slowly. No. It was the way you drop a pencil, my business failed. So it hit me hard, but also I think it was intentional. It was God's intention to wake me up because I was in a lot of denial.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pastor Tim, and
Yes.
then COVID happened. You're here with twin girls who were they under a year then, I think?
Well, yes, they were actually born on the 15th of November 2019. So by the time the country is getting to a lockdown in March of 2020, they were barely 3 months old.
Yes.
Yeah, so for me, I just come from my paternity leave. And so going back to work, I think I was in for a month. And then, straight we get into March and the country goes into a lockdown. And obviously being, a pastor working in church, and churches became one of the places where restrictions were put. And for several months, we were not allowed to gather for in-person service. In fact, some of the terms we've learned recently, like in-person service, these are terms we've learned through this season. And so for me, it was a blessing because we had just gotten the twin girls. And so there was a lot of learning because they are our first children. And so when we were sent into lockdown, I took it in as a blessing because I was like, finally, I just come from paternity. And so I was like, wow, I extended period to just hang out with my kids and be there even for my wife, just to support her through this process, because I knew, because I was there from the beginning, the challenge of just bringing up twins. So it's like, finally, I think God has looked down on me and has smiled and has given me an opportunity to be there for my girls. But I don't think I thought about it in a long time. I thought maybe 4 or 5 weeks we'll be out of this thing and then we go back. But then it continued going and going and going. I was like, wow, this thing, where is it ending? Where is it leading us? So at first, I took it in as a blessing because I was there home with my family and my kids, just seeing them grow. But at some point, I was like, hey, enough of this thing. When are we breaking out of this thing? And like Pastor Ondachi keeps saying, no one thought by close of 2021 into 2022 would still be talking about COVID in its current reality. Like, it's not like it's going anywhere or we figured it out. Yeah, so I think that's where I've been the last 2 years.
Wow, excellent. And I love that we've started that conversation in this way, because then it drives me straight to something that, and this one I'm directing to you, Pastor Martin, something that Pastor Grace did, I think yesterday or the day before. And I actually started calling people. I'm like, can you go, are you friends with Pastor Grace on Facebook? You need to see the brave thing she has put out there, because I thought, Pastor Grace, that was really brave. So even before I come to you, I want to hear from Pastor Martin. So as a church, as leaders, I mean, think about this thing. Schools were shaken, we had to start doing online schooling and homeschooling for that matter. We had to change our, try and order online. I mean, at one point you couldn't leave our houses. We couldn't, the period of between March and was it July, where nobody was moving because now we were really scared. We were all being skeptical about, have you had somebody who has COVID? Because there's a period of months when none, you go like through your own phone, you're like, have you had anybody with this thing? Nobody. You couldn't hear of somebody. Then he started touching one person, another family. Then it started becoming more and more of a reality. But from a church point of view, and I remember 2018, the time I had disconnected completely from church, and I was in search of a church. So me, I was the bedside Baptist kind of a church goer. And even then, we used to be really judged about those people who don't go to a physical church and all that. But Pastor Martin,
so
Pastor Grace
was your pastor.
Imagine. you know? No, I was listening to the pastor online, Pastor Ondachi. So Pastor Martin, when Pastor Grace put this thing out, and I really want to commend you, Pastor Grace, for saying it out from a pastor's point of view, that, you know, somehow we used the pandemic to literally exit from church and tukaenda tukiendanga. You know, there are those who left, you know, you couldn't join Zoom, you couldn't do whatever. But from you, from a pastoral point of view, how was it then shepherding people online?
Okay. Let me just go a little bit back to 2002 when Kibaki came to power. I remember we were with a group of friends, and by then in Kenya, there were too many cults. Kenya, it's called what? KCB? No, not KCB, KBC, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. Every pastor who was going online was doing very cultic stuff and teaching very weird stuff. That's when we started buying water that is holy from River Jordan. You know, and stuff like that. And stuff, I mean, there were a lot of stuff in Christian circle then, and I believe it was being driven by poverty, you know. And when 2002, when when Kibaki came into power, I remember we went on a retreat with a few of my friends, and this was our prayer, that God will lift Kenya so economically, so that most Kenyans, or rather, most Kenyans will be economically stable to the point where church goers will be people who are going to seek God for who he is, but not seeking God as opium, you know, to dull the pain of poverty and disappointment by the government. I remember us praying, making that prayer. And over the years, what I have seen happen is church started growing and word became rich. Even online pastors became much more richer, but still you find that the cult still continued. So to answer your question, when I saw what happened in 2020, I was in ICC Mombasa, I was in leadership, I was in, no, I had quit leadership, but I was running the teens department. And one of the things that I saw happen and affect the church is in two phases. Number one, people suddenly realize that they do not have to worship inside a building. Yeah? So people, and that was an amazing realization, because I think the Christian God is the only God who takes attendance. Yeah, that's the only God I know who takes attendance. So people realize that they don't have to go and worship inside a building. That was an amazing realization for most people. Then the second thing that happened is that most pastors realize that they have no savings. If people do not give on Sunday, they go hungry, okay? So the effect was in two phases. Number one, pastors suddenly realized that they actually need to have a way to have an income up above just being a church, expecting the church to give to them. They need to have some way to have a sustainable income. Then the second thing that was very quick to be realized is that church does not have to happen in a building. Church can happen at home. For the first time, my kids realized that they can actually do praise and worship, and they can actually preach, because what we used to do is every Sunday, we would, after we have had breakfast, we would have church. We would actually have a praise and worship moment. We would have a time where each person would preach, you know, they would have, we knew that next week it's going to be Pastor Kenna, next week it's going to be Pastor Lexus, Pastor Wairimo, Pastor Kamau, Pastor Faith, you know, and that was, and so suddenly church became what God really wanted it to be. So how did that affect Kenya at large? One, people who intentionally sought God grew exponentially spiritually. because now God was not a person of congregation, but a personal God, a relationship which you can sustain on your own. Those who were going to church because they felt guilty, they had the opportunity to walk away gladly because they realized, oh, I can actually survive without church. And so now the catch was this is what made me really, really happy, is that they walked away. They could not go to the bars because they would have flocked the bars, and they could not go to church, and they could not bring beers at home because they were telling their children it is bad. It is bad to take beer. And so most of them ended up being converted into, real worshipers as they watched the church online. So yeah, that's my take in your question. I hope I didn't leave something out.
No, you didn't. You were actually very elaborate about it. I want to go to our audience as well before I come back to the panelists, because remember we said this is a very engaging session, and I want to put Claire on the spot. Miss Claire, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Fantastic, Claire Chepchumba. So tell me, just the same way, when we were discussing about what the online and the whole church going, online, what did that do for you? Were you a bedside Baptist like me, or couch side Baptist like me, or what was it like for you, the transition from being in a physical church to, now again being online?
For me, I loved going to church. So when they banned going to church, I was kind of sad. But then with time, when we began doing our Zoom church with Mavuno Lavington, and we were doing the small groups, it now even felt like a life group. So I began enjoying it once again. And then I also began watching Stephen Fatick. Now we also became now online church congregation as well. So for me, it was quite positive. But I still I'm a person for in-person church. Yeah. So I hope it will go back. Soon.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Claire. Anybody else has something to share from the audience? I'll keep on picking on people. Abigail, your hand is up.
Yeah. So I'm actually the direct opposite of Claire.
Okay.
Direct opposite of her, because as a person, I typically did not like going out. And it got so bad that I had to nudge my boss so I can come to the office as least as possible. It went for 5 days a week to 3 days a week, then 2 days a week, then 1 day a week. Even that 1 day, I kind of have to ask in advance, is this compulsory? So when COVID happened in March and we all got to go home, I was firstly happy because I was trying to bring up working from home. And so wow, okay, this is pretty good. Then the online church happened, and I love it so much. It was so perfect that even till today, I'm like, wow, how could I have done without this? It was so perfect that because my laptop is just near my bed, so I would just roll out of bed and be on the camera. I don't have to be on camera all the time. I could go mute and go have breakfast. And it was so convenient, man. You don't have to go anywhere. Like church was in front of you.
We lost you, or are you still there?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, you're now back.
Yeah, so I was saying the entire thing, I just loved it so much. And I didn't really my relationship with God in a way got better because for the Mavuno current Zoom service, I was like the standby IT troubleshooter person. So by default, I had to be there. So there was no jumping around that.
So you're still working.
I didn't anything. I was like, oh, fine. I can still show up and serve God, but do it in a way most comfortable for me.
Yes.
So I tried that. Prior to that, like many people, I had the YouVision Bible app, and I've always had a Bible plan going on. So that was always there. Plus, YouVision tends to have prayers, so I always had that. But then the COVID thing just made me more comfortable going nowhere, which was like peak for me. My mom was worried, but I loved it.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Abigail, for sharing. You're always so full of life. I love that. And, you know, so Pastor Grace, tell me, even as you put out that post, Pastor Ondachi is one of the people I called and I said, please go to her page and see what she has just posted. Because I was completely intrigued and taken by the bravery of that post. But even more taken by the responses that came through from that post. What has been your take from, you know, from the general feedback that you've received?
Now, for those who don't know, the post read, COVID was the perfect excuse to leave church, but no one is ready to admit. When I put it out, I'll be pretty honest. Of course, I tried to write little things for social change because the churches are, you know, the churches are empty. Let's talk about it that way. I feel that, yes, we might have said online church, but did we say that they'll never be going back to church? So what I noticed that the post did, it brought comments from people who had already made up their decision and they've packed up that they are now their new church. The new church is them. It's them. They you know, as in they don't need a pastor. They don't need, they've realized church wasn't good. Somebody actually said, for the last 1 year, I've been very peaceful without church. Now, it brings back this side of, of, you know, who are pastors and why did God call them? And it also brings the side of, if I was God, this is how I would test the church. It's such a cool way to test the church, because that way you know who's committed. Because, you know, again, there's no church. Church is for serving. It's for serving God. You go there to serve a God who you probably cannot see on Sunday, but that institution was founded. That institution is an important institution that must speak, because society needs it. Because I'm looking at some of the comments here and I'm thinking, don't you know you're going to need your pastor on your wedding day? Don't you know you're going to need your pastor to bury you? Don't you know you're going to need your pastor to dedicate your baby? Don't you know you're going to need the word preached to you? So like, oh no, I listen to Stephen Fatick. But I'm like, don't you know that church is supposed to be done as a family? That yet Stephen Fatick might have a word, but the idea of church was always that people in church are like a family to each other. It wasn't that your pastor is miles and miles away and you cannot reach him. And he, you know, it's that the hope of the world is the local church. It has always been the local church. And I looked at it the other night because I was also getting discouraged from some of the posts what people were posting. And so I looked, and a family needed me because one of their people was going into ICU. Another family needed me because of what I can't remember the exact reason, but that night, 2-3 families needed. They're like, Pastor Grace, we need you right now. So I was like, hey, don't be discouraged, because it can also be discouraging for pastors. I don't know if people Absolutely. Have looked at the flip side of it. Yes, you don't need us anymore. It can also be very discouraging, even as we can be like, so should we just pack up and go? We're not needed anymore, you know, because people have online pastors, online church. Because, you know, Pastor Ondachi will stand and preach to 20 people when he could be preaching to 300 people. And we all know it's not about COVID, because people are going to the malls, you're going to schools, your children are going to 20 people, 30, 40 people class. And they sit in there with their mask and they come out. We all know about an N95 mask. It does not let anything in. But now people don't want to go back. So I feel for me, that is what I was addressing. It was that reluctance. And I felt many pastors came alongside me and tried to talk to the people there. People were saying, yes, we made up our mind, we've left already, we're gone already. But my prayer at the end of the day was that if the wounds that people have had, that people need to forgive and go back to their church. Because that is what the Sermon on the Mount, it concentrated on forgiveness, the issue of forgiving the wounds that, I mean, everybody has offended you. Your wife has offended you. Your children have offended you. Yes, maybe your pastor offended you. But it's time you forgave and went back and built the church, because the church is still his bride, and it's still the reason he died, and he's still coming back for the bride. So yeah, thank you for helping me say that.
Wonderful. And I think the whole concept that church is a building, because I think that's where we were stuck and where we were lost, that it's a building, it's about your pastor, it's about your reverend. I think it's about the family, and it's about, you know, like you very well said, coming together. You know, you have people that you can fellowship with, you have people that you can trust and say, let's pray together, let's talk to each other. There's a shoulder to lean on. But very quickly, again, even as we're looking at fast forwarding 2020, so now we're on lockdown, we have been now put into the whole thing of we are opening, there's curfew hours, there's how many hours we can be outside, there's lockdown, there's all these things that is happening. Then I think from December, losses began. You know, we started losing people. There were job cuts. There were, you know, different areas. Pastor Tim, what areas did you experience loss, and what kind of loss did you go through during this season?
So, I mean, I think reality began sinking in as the year was progressing. That's in 2020, and I think at some point, obviously, like Pastor Grace has mentioned, because I mean the physical church was not happening. People are not coming into in a physical space, so giving was affected really, because I think there's a culture where people had gotten used to giving in a physical environment. So even as we're trying to create different avenues and different platforms on how people can continue to give towards the work of ministry. So I think the first thing that was hit was our salaries as members of staff. We got a pay cut, which made sense because we understood what was going on, because one, people are not giving as much because again, businesses have been affected, job losses and all, and so giving went down, and so we had to make adjustments given the current reality. And so for me, that was the first thing that COVID brought in. I was like, okay, my salary has been reduced, I understand. Then that meant a lot of lifestyle adjustments to make do with what was coming and what has been coming. So I think for me, that was the first space of loss. But then as time was progressing, and I think, and I hope I'm not turning things around too quickly, but I think when we got into 2021, certain realities began to kick in. And I think the month of January this year, for me, was very difficult because within the first 4 weekends of January, I was at a funeral somewhere. And for me, at some point, I was like, okay, what's really going on? And I think in all my life, yes, I've attended funerals, but not in that quick succession. And they were not even for family members. They were from people within our community and people who needed our support. And so every week, from the first weekend of January till the end of January and into February, and it's been like that. Well, obviously now things are beginning to, as the year went on, things began easing out a bit. But we got to a place where every weekend, every other weekend, you are either in a mashakaya meeting, maybe in a condolences meeting, bereaving with family and supporting them through their grief. And, you know, I mean, I'm a human being. There's so much you can take in. And at some point, you almost become numb to the realities people are facing, not because you're choosing to be so, but because, I mean, really, you have to give people support. And so at some point, you just pack the issues that you're going through and helping people walk through this. And as you're mourning with others, something else comes up. I remember at some point this year, just out with a family that had lost their dad. And there's a comment a family member made that, I mean, it sounded, I can't even say it was funny because it is just people trying to process what's going on, because the previous week, the family friend had lost, I think, their mom. And so they had made some, I think, samosas and all. And throughout the planning of the funeral, the samosas never ran out. And so now next, one of their friends loses their dad. And so the same samosas that had been prepared, they just continued on. And like, you're moving from one condolence meeting and funeral to the next without taking a break, without even time to process what's going on. So for me, I think those are the two areas that I felt so, I felt the reality of COVID bringing in, and where there's financial loss, but also family members or people around the community that I serve in, losing a family member one after another, and you have to really be with them, because you can't say, well, I conducted a burial, or I was in a funeral last week, I can't go for another. You just have to marshal up energy from wherever and be with them. So for me, that for me was just what I faced as this thing was kept coming at us.
And it's really good that you've taken us there, because that's where we were headed. And you know, like I was saying, 2020, somehow we got through it, and you know, we kept thinking it was the worst. Then came 2021. I remember I lost an uncle on 24th of December 2020, and then we buried him on actually a day like today last year. And then, you know, you come into the year telling God, "Whoa, Father, let's the year be a good year." And then, of course, there was the new variant for COVID, and by the way, they have very weird names. I don't know why they keep calling them. Now that one was Delta, now it's Omicron. Reminds me of the cyclones and the hurricanes, the way they named them, very weird names. But you know, we had thought it had left us. And Pastor Tim, actually, this is when I met you, because then I lost a very close friend the first week of January. And it's like there was a line. In fact, I remember one time one of my aunties saying, it's like there's a queue in heaven where Peter or someone has a file and they're saying, need the nanny, because it was ridiculous. You know, you were in one funeral. I remember 1 month where we didn't even close our WhatsApp, because it was the same family. You know, you're in a funeral, you lose another person. You're in a funeral, you lose another person. So Pastor Martin, I mean, it was so much loss, and especially you know, in church. And for you guys, I keep coming back, because then this is a church setup. What was it like for you in your journey? You know, how do you stand and then preach and give hope in a situation where there's so much hopelessness, in a situation where someone has died of COVID, and you as a pastor, somehow you are still going to that church to pray, or to that funeral service? What was that like for you?
I think, yeah, it was really hard when you reflect, because I mean, you would find yourself put in so many WhatsApp groups, you know, just contributing and contributing. And I think it got a point where now I stopped focusing on people dying, and I started focusing on those who are living, but their life was really, really horrible, because they didn't have food to eat. You know, somebody who was doing very, very well in business, they were doing very, very well in their employment, but suddenly they have been stopped from employment, not out of malice or anything, but the employer is not able to sustain them anymore. Business is just not working. So these people were paying rent, and now they cannot be able to pay rent. They were paying school fees, they can't be able to pay school fees. And at that point, the children were not going to school, so it was a good time. But you see, it gets a point where somebody is calling you and they are telling you, we have not eaten days. So it got a point where now you say, okay, fine, people are just dying. This is too much. What is happening to the people who are living? How are they coping with all this? And so people didn't even have time to be depressed. People didn't even have time to mourn, because they were too busy thinking of, what am I going to eat tonight? Where am I going to get the next meal for my children? And especially pastors. I mean, we even started a kitty where we would do shopping for pastors, and you would find them coming and queuing. You know, the first time we asked, we thought maybe only 3 or 4 would come, but we had an overwhelming number of people just queuing, because they honestly did not have food for the month. And so you give them a bag that would last them like 2 weeks, 1 week. And then now it's extended, and now you stop thinking of pastors, you're thinking of your neighbor. I remember one neighbor said, and this is person who they own a house. So this is not somebody who is normally desperate, but they said they went for a week without food and nobody visited them, you know. So how are we dealing with it? It was overwhelming. That's all I can say. Sometimes we weep with them. Sometimes you help where you can. Sometimes you give until you have nothing else to give because the situation was completely overwhelming. Yeah, so it was tricky.
Oh, wow. Pastor Grace? In terms of the losses, in terms of, you know, perhaps even shepherding, you know, people of the middle class, of a certain class, there was a lot of, you know, talk of, for once we were all equal, no matter who you are. You couldn't fly out if you were unwell. You couldn't, you know, bring in fancy stuff because we saw 5-star hotels closing down. For once, we were almost equal. Yes, I mean, there are those who didn't have anything to eat at all, and there are those whose fridges were packed with those supermarkets, you know, running out of food and running out of tissue paper. I don't know what that thing about tissue paper was, by the way. When someone knows, please tell us one day, you know. I mean, what was that like for you, you know, shepherding people perhaps who, for them, it was either life as usual, but something has been disrupted?
Yeah, I think one thing COVID did for the congregation is that it affected from what you could say the strongest member to probably the one who was weakest, whether it's financial, whether it's health, whether it's, I think it has now visited every home in its own way. I mean, it has visited the millionaires, and it has visited the poor. It was there. I mean, everybody got a pinch of something. It was either you are here, your child is abroad, and your child is gotten sick. I know people who lost their children. Very crazy. I know people who lost the fathers of families. I know people who lost people who were CEOs and sitting, you know, on top of big businesses and big bucks. So I think, yes, when you talk about equalizing and saying that we need to handle this thing as all of us, not few of us. We can't have some of us believing in a conspiracy theory. Like, I was just hearing from a doctor today that, you know, he says about the 900 people that are admitted between 3 hospitals. I think he said Nairobi Hospital Avenue, and he said the AR Hospital, one of their members is, he said that 900 people, they all don't have jobs. They haven't taken the COVID vaccine. They haven't taken the COVID vaccine. And as a doctor, he was really mad because it's like, I haven't slept for days. I'm moving from patient to patient to patient. And we're losing them because we've not taken the COVID vaccine. You guys go pray for a miracle, go pray for miracles. But yeah, so I think this is the other thing now that is going to become the equalizing thing again. If people do not take this vaccination, because this thing is not, it doesn't seem like it is until God decides it's done. I think it's time to know that your health, but then worry about the health of the entire 8 billion people on earth. And I think that is very, very, very important. And I began as a pastor to say, I can't be praying for my family. That is, I can't pray for the church, my church here. Now, what dot is that? What dot is that I'm praying for when people are dying more in Europe and in America? So I began, I know I do have the art of an intercessor, but I was praying for continents. Because I know we won't be out. We can't say it's in South Africa, Omicron. It will be here within 10 minutes.
Yes.
You know, we can't say. We can't say. So we can't say Asia is far. Nowhere is far. We needed to pray for just the 8 billion people, and mostly to pray that they would receive Christ, because people who are dying and people are continuing to die, do they know Christ?
A very, very, very interesting conversation we are having, and I can even see many people still, you know, chatting away and on the losses and the people that they lost. And you know, it wasn't just about COVID. I don't want us to just think about it as people who are dying of corona. I had 2 very close friends battling cancer the whole of last year and this year. So you can imagine even trying to get oxygen for them, for surgery and all that was such a difficult thing. I mean, I don't know how many of us have sat back to realize when you breathe in and out, that it is indeed a miracle. I think we all think miracles to be these humongous things that must happen, but the very fact that when I got COVID sometime this year as well in March, and I'm telling you, the idea of being told, keep trying to breathe in and out, and the difficulties of breathing in and breathing out, you cannot imagine how difficult, just the thought of you imagining right now, you're just inhale, exhale, it's so easy for you to do. But then there's somebody who needed to be hooked onto a machine for that to happen for them. We were put on so many groups, for financial, not just funeral. People now became sick. People are stuck with hospital bills in tunes of millions, someone's mother, someone's father, someone's sister, brother, name it. I mean, it drained all of us financially in ways that you can't imagine. And I just want to keep encouraging us to keep sharing on the chats. But again, even very briefly, as a church, and even as now forgetting yourselves as pastors, as human beings, where did this leave you? Who then did you turn to, as well, to say, I need guidance, I need to be prayed for, I need to be held my hand? Pastor Grace, who did you turn to? We assume we all come to you and cry to you. So who do you go to? And I ask this even to psychologists, because I'm like, we all come to you with our issues, then you unaenda wapi?
Yeah, to be honest, for the longest time, it hit me that God was not going to answer this how we wanted him to answer this. It finally dawned on me that God was not, he's good, he's loving, he's in control, he's not running around heaven asking for what to do next. But it hit me that God was asking for a different way to do everything, a different way to do church, a different way to think about humanity. God was asking for a bigger vision for the world. And the old one was never going to work again. And at that point, of course, I turned to God with a lot of disappointment. I mean, I'm like, after the flood, surely. You promised with the rainbow, oh God, that you will not destroy humanity. How now do you just destroy? I mean, we are helpless, we are dying, we are gone, And at that point, God told me, begin to pray for that vaccine. Because, for one whole year, we were praying for that vaccine. But of course, when the vaccine got here, there was more conspiracy than the vaccine. So I really do feel that I did turn to God very disappointed. I felt very disappointed. At some point, I felt very, very disappointed. Like, God, is this how you are going to disrupt humanity? But every day, I've seen God is going to use this to bring out something good.
Okay. Fantastic. Pastor Martin?
So how did I deal with it? I turned to the only thing, or the only person I turn to when things are overwhelming to me. And so I did not turn to God alone. What I did is I had several groups. We have a group for cousins, which is like around over 40 cousins. So what I rallied them to do is to do what we would call a prayer wheel, where there would be a group of 5 people praying every day. And what we would do is we would have these 5 people, they would prepare the prayer points and share on our WhatsApp group. So it's not just you praying. And then at the end of the day, you would, very early in the morning, there would be somebody posting a prayer. At lunchtime, somebody posting a prayer, and in the evening, somebody posting a prayer. And every day there would be different prayer agendas of what is affecting us as individual, as a country, and then as Africa, and then the entire world. Okay, so that's what we did with that. Then there was this other group also of the people we used to fellowship with when we were in college. I also started another prayer chain that was happening. And then there was a group of married couples. So basically, I rallied people to pray because that was the only thing we could turn to. Because everything that was coming to me was too overwhelming for any individual to handle them. Could only turn to a higher power. Yes, so that's how I dealt with it.
Yeah, Pastor Tim, very quickly, how did you deal with this as an individual, not just as a pastor?
Yeah, yes. Thanks, Lorraine, for asking that question. And like I said, with the turn of the months, with people dying, finally reality hit home, because my dad had been battling a terminal illness. He had been diagnosed with a kidney problem. That's September of 2020. So around April, he got a bit unwell, pretty unwell actually. So we rushed him to hospital, was admitted at KNH, and in 8 days from his admission, he passed on. And so it was no longer now helping people out there, but now I lost my dad, not to COVID, but he died. And so the people I really turned out, I turned quickly, obviously God, but I think there's a space of relationships around us. And what happened as the year had begun is, as our staff team, we began meeting together every Tuesday for Bible study and prayer. We began doing that for about 3 hours, and over time, it became something that now we do a full day. And I know if you've not attended it, you wonder, how do you do a Bible study for a whole day? What do you discuss? But when you are there, you even don't know when time passes. We sit down, and before you know it, it's 4 o'clock. We've not even had time to eat lunch, and we keep going. So that, for me, became the support group that worked with me through this process of my own even personal loss, where even in that space, God spoke. And God is amazing. God in his own infinite wisdom knew that I could not have listened to him in a certain way. So he spoke through our very own Pastor Ondachi and Pastor Sheiks about the turn of events in terms of my dad. And eventually when my dad succumbed to the illness and passed on, I can say this with confidence, it didn't catch our team with surprise, because God had spoken about it. And it gave me comfort to know his last dying minutes, how that went about, and actually God coming through and just ministering to him personally. Obviously, prayers we've made over the years about his life, turning it over to God. So by the time he was dying, he had actually given his life to Jesus, not by human intervention, but by God's goodness and grace. He turned over his life. So for me, I'm even finding it hard to say staff team, because it creates a space. But for me, our staff team has become family to me, and those are the people I turned to, and I've constantly now been turning to when there's difficulty and there are challenges, and they've really come around to support and help me walk through my own difficult journey.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Pastor Tim, and may your dad continue resting in peace, and also Olive and many of us who lost parents this year or a loved one this year. But guys, guess what? In all the storms and in all the things that we've been through, it is December 30th. He is a faithful God. He is a gracious God. We are standing. Yes, we might be mourning. Yes, we might be crying. Yes, we have friends and loved ones in hospital. Yes, yes, yes. But we are standing, and there's something to be grateful for. And I was sharing just before we started the session about how one of my very close friends in one of her therapy sessions was asked, even as we get towards Christmas, and it's the most difficult one, to look back through the pain and anguish the year that has been after her loss. What is the one thing she was grateful for? And she was so furious. Like, are you joking? Like, in all this, what would you imagine I would be grateful for? And even when she shared with me, I said, no, imagine, let's look at it. Let's look at it. There has to be that thing that you're grateful for. And so as we move to the next session very quickly, what is the one thing that you're grateful for? I will tell you, Epic Lorraine Life Events was born in February of this year. everybody gets shocked because everybody assumes it was born in many years ago, but it was born this year. And it was born again out of pain, because when I lost my very close friend on January 8th, I ran around, I had to put my emotions on the side and then step in and do. Events come naturally to me. I've never, I don't think about it. And so after the funeral and doing everything, people sat me down and said, you need to start a business and this is what you need to do. And I said, what, do funerals? And I remember when Pastor Ondachi at the funeral service saying, should he die today, Lorraine should plan his funeral. And, he said, that's how effortless that this came about. So for me, something was birthed out of all the pain and out of the anguish that went through this year. Pastor Grace, what has been birthed for you? What is that one thing you look back in all this chaos that you can say, but for God?
I think, of course, there are fun things that have been birthed. Like, I know how to make the best chapati.
You learn how to cook.
I learned how to make chapati. And ugali during this COVID.
I love your honesty, yes. Pastor Grace.
Yes, that's what it is. But of course, one thing that has been birthed is August 20th, 2020 at 2000 hours. This man, Pastor Ondachi, he was like, who is in the house there with you? I was like, my mom. He's like, can you get anointing oil? Even you can get cooking fat from the kitchen. We are pouring oil. You're going to plant Mavuno Karen. So, so he didn't even lay hands on me. He used my mother's hand. And on August 20th, 2020 at 2000 hours, wow. Mavuno Karen was born. So I think that is one beautiful thing that I can say was born in this COVID.
Fantastic.
A COVID church.
A COVID church. Well done. Well done. Pastor Tim, in all the chaos, we've lost Mzee, we've gone to Chogoria, we've buried, in all this drama and all the chaos, but for God, what is the one thing?
For me, two things actually. So first is his own salvation. For me, there's no value I can place on that. That now I can confidently say that my dad is in heaven. Sile akusema for PR sake, so that you appear nice. I know that for a fact. Pastor Ondachi is a witness. Pastor Shix is a witness that God witnessed to my dad in his dying moments and gave him an option. Really told him, I can actually make you whole and you walk out of this hospital, but you will struggle, or you can decide to turn over your life to me and we go. So for him, being absent with him, for me is an indication that he's before God. And like Pastor Ondachi keeps saying, he'll be one of the people who will usher me when my time comes. I don't know when, but whenever that time is, I'll find him there and tell me, come, wacha nikuoneshe a couple of things that you need to know. So for me, that's one thing. But the other thing is dependence on God in terms of resources. Like I said, when you asked me, when we talked earlier, that God is able to provide for you. It's actually God who provides for us. I think when we go to work, we work and you get a salary, or if you're in business, you get your margins and you pay your bills. At times we imagine that that's how we are making ends meet. But I think one of the things I've learned in this season is that actually it's God who takes care of us. You can actually work and have nothing to show. And so for me, this season has been a season to see God's faithfulness when it comes to provision. I mean, the last 6 or so months, it's not like I earn I'm a super wealthy guy, but God has always consistently provided for my family over and above my salary. And at times I even don't know how, but somehow just money checks in and I'm like, okay, fine, thanks God for your provision. Clearly you know my boundaries and what I'm able to provide, but God says I can do even more than you're able to do even for yourself. So those two things stand out for me in this year.
Awesome. Pastor Martin, there's a flu that has been going around, that there was a joke going around that kama haujapata hiyo flu wewe si muzalendo. So if you've not gotten that flu yenyewe, you're not with others. So but for you, Pastor Martin, what is the one thing that you can say, whether umepata hii flu ama wewe ni muzalendo or not? What is the one thing 2020, 2021, when you look back, you can say, enyewe mi wacha nikwambie, pastor or not, but for God, hapa singetoboa.
Yeah, well, Several things really, like in 2020 when there was the closing of everything. I guess I realized that my wife and my daughter are really amazing chefs. They will make every sort of thing, you know, from pizza using a sufuria, or rather, oh yeah, I realized that you can be able to have a square pizza and it would still be awesome, you know. But also I'm grateful.
Is that but for God or your wives and your daughter's creativity?
You said what we are grateful.
That's joking.
Anyway, then also just the fact that God kept us, you know, safe. My entire family, and I know because we are any better than anyone who was sick, but He just chose to extend that to us. That was an amazing thing. I mean, I'm just looking at things I'm grateful for, because for my family not being sick helped me be able to pray for those who are really suffering and be able to stand with them in whichever capacity that I could. So that was amazing. I know that, like, for example, my part-time teaching, I have not been paid since 2019. So really, yeah, I have not been paid. Am I still teaching? Yeah, I have a passion. That's the other thing I realized, that I have a passion for the youth in universities. So I realized that actually I do not teach because of the money. I actually teach so that I can impact the knowledge I have, because I really hate theories. You know, the way you go to a class and come out with theory only. I'm very, very practical. So yeah, so money trickles in every once in a while, but it has accumulated to so much. I don't even, I hope they will pay me in lump sum. I'll be a very rich guy.
We shall all land in Mombasa. I promise you. We shall pray for that check. Then we shall all land in Mombasa. Don't even joke, Pastor.
So yes, I got to learn the passion.
I know places to take you, Lorraine.
There you go, Pastor.
So yeah, I got to learn my passion also. I got to learn my children's passion. Yes. Because you only know you're passionate about something if you're happy to do it regardless of whether you're paid for it or not.
Absolutely.
Then in March 2021, that's when Mavuno Mombasa was incepted. Yeah.
Wow. And the one thing Pastor O was busy doing during this COVID was conceiving and giving birth to children.
Amazingly, by then I didn't even know who Pastor O was. We were dealing with Pastor Njoro, and it was chaotic, I can assure you.
Yeah.
So really it was the actual birthing of Mavuno Mombasa happened in August. That's when we started doing Mizizi and everything. I had the team. And whatever you're hearing is happening in Mavuno Mombasa has happened in this last quarter, really. And God has been amazing to us. God has been healing people, like people who have been hurt in churches. You know, they would come to the fellowships we have at home and they get healed. They would come and we do the Mizizi fellowship and they get revived, people being restored, their prayer life, people just, you know, getting jobs miraculously, you know, just God, amazing things in the people we've been fellowshipping with. Wow. So yeah, there's so much to be grateful about, you know, when we actually look at the flip side and we stop, like Pastor Grace has said, you know, putting God in a box of what you should be doing. We stop looking at what we think God should be doing and we start looking at what He's actually doing. God has been an amazing thing in transforming people spiritually, physically, emotionally. Yeah, showing them that there is actually life without everything you believe to be life.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Pastor Martin. And I love the chats. You know, Pastor O always tells me, I think 2 hours is a lot, and time just flies. I'm looking at it now and I'm like, oh my God, already, you know, and we'll get to Jedediah in a few minutes, but I love what Consolata you have shared. This is amazing. Guys, please keep sharing. We will keep this recording and we'll keep reading this. And for you, Consolata, you've learned that life is not a kawaida thing. One can lose it within a blink of an eye. Boy, is that true. That your faith in God, the owner of life, depended like you could never have imagined before. That everything is vanity. Oh, so true. The jobs we hold on, cars, like yours was carrying cabbages, and oh, you are those guys, you are those guys who started opening your booths and selling to us potatoes and onions on the side of the road in your BMWs, and potatoes to homes, trying to at least give to the needy, or you were giving to the needy. Fantastic, you know. You were saying that it was so touching how people were being buried at dawn and no time to mourn. Oh boy, yes, that was quite something. The specialists who buried the dead was so scaring to an extent that the sight of it left our elderly with blood pressure and all that. Yes, indeed. Claire, who is now Mzalendo full because she has a Homa, she thanks God that she thrived at work and she got promoted. Wow, another beautiful thing was birthed for you to a program manager. Your salary was increased. He's a faithful God, I tell you. We've got Pastor Kingi, but for God, for him, 2 things. God healed his mom and dad from COVID, and God's amazing, gracious, and amazing provision. To him be the glory. Saum, lovely to see you. The last 2 years have been epic for you. You lost 2 family friends, close family friends, and downscaled your business. But you're so grateful that you're still here standing because of the grace of God. But for every bad experience, there's something good that comes out of it, and you've gone into mentorship and coaching classes you're very big in community service, Saum, that I know for a fact, and I really thank God for you. Rose Shege, you lost your husband this year, Pole Sana, and the period of leading to that was very traumatic for you, and with all the family issues and debts and medical bills. But for God, amen, that you can even testify even through that darkness. God has held you and your son through the grief, through the tears and the darkness, and I know it was really dark because I know you personally, and you're walking through this, and I know God will uphold you. The fact that you're here, it is great. I'm really happy to see you here. Prof David Garuya, you're saying, but for God, I would not have had time to write and publish. Yani, you know, when you flip this thing, there's so many things that are great that are coming out of this. Jedediah, very quickly to you, just to share before we go to Pastor Ondachi.
Can you hear me?
Barely. You may need to speak up or increase your volume.
Can you hear me?
No, we can perhaps just put it on the chat so that we save on time because we can't hear you. Is that okay with you?
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and for Angel, you're also saying that the past 2 years, God has been very faithful. You have so much to be grateful for, and we are thanking God with you as well. So very quickly, as you can tell, I'm really trying to rush. You guys, there's pressure when you have 3 pastors, and you know these guys are always saying finally, and it's amazing that we managed to do this, Percy, as quickly as we have. Thank you very much, you guys. Pastor Ondachi, like I always say, nourish us. You know, it's been an amazing session. I have so many things that I'd love for us to continue talking about. But here we are, December 30th, and we are standing, Percy. What is your takeaway, even as you go into the sermon for us?
For me?
Yes.
Hey, you guys, I'm listening to this and I am actually, whenever you've seen my camera going out, it's because I'm choking up. Because I know these stories. I know when we sent Grace away, I always knew Grace would be such a profoundly marvelous campus pastor. And Grace, you've turned out to be more than I expected. I remember saying, Grace, don't come back to the staff team. Oh my God, we did know, but Grace, you have made us so proud, so proud of what you've done. Martin, I remember when we were thinking of Mombasa and you and Faith were thinking maybe you are not the people through those transitions, and how I've seen God do these things in these dark times. Guys, this is quite overwhelming when you think about it. I love the chats that, people were saying, but God, losing a spouse, but God, losing a marriage, but God, parents nearly dying of COVID, but God. Lorraine has become the pride of my life because of, Epic Lorraine. And Lorraine is not telling us a whole story, but this girl has gone through beef, beef, and she's here. What an amazing coordinator you are, Lorraine. I'm listening to you running this show, and I'm wondering why I didn't just do by pastoral decree that it's 4 hours, because it's so enjoyable the way you are bringing out these stories. Lorraine, earlier I was telling you that we need to find a way to make you our events coordinator in church, where you can be running this kind of conversations for us, because you brought out stories from these pastors. I talk with them nearly every day, but I've not seen them as lively as they're looking now. And this is just completely beautiful, really, really beautiful. For me, of course, the joy is all of you. I mean, the morning prayers, I can't tell you how much I'm missing those prayers in the morning and looking at your faces every morning as we have grown. We started with about 15, 16 people. By the time we're closing to go on break, we're nearly 60 people. The groups that are meeting and people that are connecting with each other. For me, that has been something for which I have told God, if we got something right, we got that right. And I can tell you the energy around our movement is that, I don't know, I've seen a large part of them, so some of them, you've seen that the numbers declining. At a certain point, we were the only group that was growing. Am I right, Grace? We were the one team that just kept growing. I don't know what we got right, but we got that right somewhere. I mean, and it's growing exponentially. And I thank God for the energy that I see in there. And I know that our time is short. And so I needed to share something with us. And I'll just share it in that same brain that my senior brother studied in the USSR. And the USSR, in the university where he was, you could not have a lecturer who is not teaching you from his book or her book. Forget it. Because you are not considered an authority if you've not published. And so whatever subject you're teaching, they would ask you, have you written on it? And then the second thing that stood out from my bro, and he was sharing with me about his studies in the USSR for 6 years, was number 2, all their exams were oral. If you had written, if you're asked something, you stand up and you answer questions. You don't sit down and you do theories of, filling in exams. You are actually answering a panel. That's where the idea of defending came from. You defend every thought you have. You are encouraged to write thoughts that were original because you're expected to publish as soon as possible. And the government was set in such a way that if you indicated interest in publishing, the government press published for you. That's how it was. So the more interesting thing was, what are you interested in telling us? And then the government will publish it for you. But what I want to share with us is this. When you are defending, he said the other thing they do not have in the Russian language for exams is the word fail. They don't have the word fail. Instead, they use a word, you are not ready. That's what they say, you are not ready. So if you stand up and you are nervous and you are not articulating your ideas properly, they would tell you, they would not give you an F or a fail, they would tell you, go and prepare. Because they believed that every person has got something of worth to say. And it could be that circumstances around you are not supportive. It could be that you are unwell. It could be that you are not done your homework properly. So they would tell you, go and come back when you're ready. They had a 100 pass rate for every exam because the opportunities were endless. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the same word then for problem in Chinese and in Russian and other languages is opportunity. The same word for problem is opportunity. And that's what I want to share with us today shortly, to say that I feel really sorry and sad for the way that we got very disorganized. But there is a truth and gratitude in what the question that Grace asked on social media. For me, I didn't take it badly when people are responding, I left because the church is like this, the church is full of hypocrites, the church doesn't provide this, the church is not organized. You know what? The truth is, I think this was a sieving from God. Why have a church of 4,000 people and 3,950 just sit there watching you and not intending to do anything about what you're telling them? I mean, it gets tired to entertain people. I'd rather have 5 people who you know can change the world with you. And I think God was doing his own sieving. That is the truth for me. If there are fewer people like we're experiencing now, I believe in my whole heart that those are the people God wants. If somebody decided the church is too far or it's too full of hypocrites or this doesn't work for me, you know, the Bible says they are not with us because they were never really part of us. I mean, testing is through the Bible, guys. That is the truth. And there is a sieving of really serious people. It is in line with prophecy, how it opens up, that there will be a testing and there's a categorization of who's really serious with God. There is. And for me, the people I see who are few, who we are starting with, and who God will call in this season, it's as if God has just chujad. If people used to come to church because it's fashionable, or because it's easy, or because it's, guess what? This season has just if you want to go to Mombasa, you want to enjoy bedside Baptist with Apostle Duve ministering to you, you go ahead and do that. If that is what feeds you, then let that feed you. But the people who want community, who want to grow, who want, you know, the hypocrisy about this, huh? There's a time we were being visited by the Ugandans. They came and blessed us a lot in church. And that time church had very few people, very few. We took the Ugandans for lunch. We went to the waterfront in Grace's backyard. Guess what? That same Sunday, the mall was so full, we had to wait outside for a seat. I said, this is hypocrisy. This is very strange hypocrisy. It's not that places don't crowd up. People are not interested in God. And we need to face that reality that those who are not interested, God will not force himself on them. But there is a remnant, guys. There is a remnant of people that God is going to bring to himself. And what I was saying with Grace the other day is, we're not going to be focusing on the seats that are empty. We'll focus on the people who have come. Focus on those ones. And God is going to increase those who have come. It's not people who are deciding not to come, believe it or not. It is God who is keeping them away. God is a hopeless romantic. He will not have anything other than your willingness. That is the truth. A relationship with God is not one in which God will ever force you to be with him. And when a sieving comes, it's the people who desire God, who find God. When you want God and you want to be in a relationship with somebody, nothing can stop you from being with them. But the moment you are not interested, nothing the other person does can ever keep you in a relationship with them. Am I right or not?
You're very
It
right.
is exactly how it happens with God. It's exactly how it happens with God. So the people you don't see, they may be thinking in jingoism, at me, I'm choosing not to go to church. Believe it or not, it is God who has said, I'm not going to force myself on you. Stay home. The day your heart prompts you to come to where I am, you will come. And because of that, I want to read for us the scripture for today. And then I want to share one thought. While I'm sharing that thought, I want you to think of something which I would like you to write down so that when the pastors, or 3 pastors pray for you, we'll pray in that line. And my question is this: what is the one thing that interests you? Just think about it. What is the one thing that interests you as a subject, as a thing, as a hobby, as a desire? What is the one thing that interests you? If it's possible to write it on the chat, write it as I'm talking. Just the one thing. What is it? It could be cars, you know? it could be flying, it could be air balloons, it could be people. But what aspect of people? It could be problems. You know, there are people who are really interested in problems, counselors, doctors, whatever, food. Yeah, it's great. What is the one thing that interests you? You find a fascination. There are people for them it's astronomy, a study of the stars. There are people for whom it is fashion. Yeah, right. It is athletics, sports. What is the one thing for you that this is of interest to me? Is it dogs? Is it horses? I like movies. There's a Kenyan blockbuster that is out recently. I looked at it, I laughed my head off, but anyway, those are my views. What is it that interests you? Horse riding? What is it? That one thing. Because I discovered a word here that please just write it, whatever it is. If as many of us as can write, I hope I can see 48 views. Something. I want to read for us from Matthew 25. I discovered a word that will blow you away because it blew me away. Jesus was telling a story. He said, Matthew 25:14, I'm going to read up to 27 or 28. Jesus said, again, the kingdom of God is like this, Jesus was saying. It will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one, he gave 5 bags of gold. This is a very common story. To another, 2 bags. To another, 1 bag. Remember, he left them money. He left them money. To another, 1 bag, each according to his ability. Now, here is the big word I discovered. This word ability, I used to think that this word ability means, talent, you know, like a natural talent which you can do, like an ability for business or an ability for, you know, a natural ability in which you are born with, so that you have to start searching the things which you can do as a natural talent. Then I also thought at a certain point that ability means strength, that according to how strong you are. This word ability means interest. It means interest. God is so good. And let me tell you, God is so simple. The world is complicated. The universe is complicated. But God in his expression, he is simple. God does not create you to know science so that you can swallow food effectively. You don't need to be a scientist. You just need to have a desire to eat. You eat, and all the scientific process that happen in your body from the time you eat food to the time it leaves your body, he doesn't call you to know that. God works with something simple called an interest he deposits in your heart. That's how amazingly good God is. I've called this message buried treasure, so that you never forget it, okay? Buried treasure. So God takes money, this is the story Jesus is giving us, and he gives each one 5 amounts of money. Could be 5 bags of gold. One person he gave 1 million, another person he gave 500,000, another person he gave 500,000, each according to your interest. Like, what are you interested in? Those things which you wrote. Then he went on his journey. Now, this is very interesting that he gives you that, and then he leaves. He leaves you alone. The man who had received 1 million, he went at once and put the money to work and gained more, so that he made 2 million. So the one who had received 500,000 went with his 500,000, and he came back with 1 million. And the man who had received 1 bag, like 100K or something, went and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned to settle accounts with them. Now, here's the first thing I need you to remember. The thing which you are interested in that you wrote down belongs to God. the interest which you have belongs to God. It's actually not yours, because it said here that he came to take an account of the thing which naturally interests you. So here's my thoughts about 2020, because you know this story about 2022 and about 2021. And I'll just say this as a bombshell. If you're, whatever it is you're occupied doing now, whether you're working for someone as an employee, or whether you are running, whatever it is that brings you money, if it is not in line with your interest, you're off purpose. Because the master put that idea in your mind as an interest and then went away. And then it will come back. The second thing I want to say is this. Whatever comes out of your interest and whatever amount you make from your interest is not dependent on God, it is dependent on you. It is not God who dictated that it should double. That was just the ability that did it. It is not. However rich or poor you become is not because of God. God does not put a cap on how much you should make out of your interest. I want to tell you a story. There's a lady in our estate, actually in our neighboring estate. She was CFO for ABSA when COVID hit. She has one daughter who they were very estranged. This lady, I was being given a ride by my Nduthi guy. When I'm not going very far, there's a Nduthi guy called Kyoko. He takes me around. One day, Kyoko rocks up to my gate, and let me tell you, there are pies that man is carrying. It was smelling amazing. So he's telling me, can I do a drop in this estate before I take you where you're going? Liani, I had just had lunch, but I told the guy, what is that you're carrying that you're going to deliver? He told me you're going to deliver it in this other estate. You know, and there was a card that he was carrying. He told me the lady who makes this pies actually just lives here next door. She told me if anybody asks her to give her this card. So I gave the lady a call when I came back. She told me, come to my house. I got a lady who was in a leso. She was like barefoot. So I was there talking to her in Swa, telling her a lot, sort of like, take me to the person who makes these pies because I want to buy some for my family. Only as we are talking for me to discover this lady has got qualifications, my marketing, my what. She was CFO for ABSA Bank. She was now making pies. The most amazing pies you have ever tasted. That lady said, I have worked with ABSA for 23 years. I just resigned because this is my interest. COVID has given me this interest to do. She said, I'm bonding with my daughter. I am at home. I realized this has always been my interest. She told me, Mr. Ondachi, I have been working in a bank doing something that has been tiring me. It has made me money, but this thing kept talking to me. She said, I am making pies. I am using my London Business School education to market this work. So I've given this guy my cards and I tell him before he drops these pies, this was the genius of marketing. Before he drops these pies where they are going, if he has other errands, pass by there. That's how I've been getting my customers. She said she cannot manage her clientele now because she's opening a bakery. It's always what she has wanted to do. She said, I'm so happy with what I'm doing now. I'm bonding with my daughter. Our lives are going on so well. Dr. Miles Monroe said, it is not hard work that makes you tired. It is wrong work. It's not hard work that makes people tired. It is wrong work. I want to ask you, when you find yourself in a place where you are tired, you are disgruntled, you are complaining, you are thinking of this thing is not right. When a person buries their gift or their interest, when you bury your interest, you start serving another person's interest. and you're out of purpose. You are only correct in your interest if what your boss is doing is aligned to your interest. That is when you're doing the right thing. But there are times when temporarily you are required to serve another person's interest as long as you are building towards your interest. The owner of your interest will come back to you one day and find that you faithfully served another person's gift while your gift never showed up. Your interest never came up. Fashion never came up. Traveling never came up. Business never came up. Whatever never came up. It's not what you're doing. Friends, these conversations come up with God because we are shortchanging ourselves and shortchanging God. In fact, it is God we are shortchanging in a bigger way, because the thing which comes to you as an interest, try and see how far back on your line of priority it is. Just try and see. That's how you know that it's buried. And there's a measure of fear that you feel, in order for me to bring this into play, it's going to take this, and it's not what I want to do. So you're following crowds conventionally. God is so amazing. He wants you to do what he planted in your mind and then he left. God does not come to ask for what he never left in you. Don't go for something just because it makes money for somebody else. That is their interest. What is yours? And that's why we get training. That's why we get skills, so that eventually we can turn to doing our interest. And some of you are interested in several things. Guess what? You can do it because it's your interest. God is not unfair. He will not come and tell you, where's the bank that you opened when your interest was never accounting. God won't do that. But the thing which speaks to you, which keeps calling to you, is your interest. And some of us have made our interest our hobby, something which you do over the weekend while you are plowing away at another person's interest. So God, imagine the anger that God felt at this man who had buried his interest. He told him, how could you bury your interest? How could you do that? If you are not developing your interest, you will lose it. You will mismanage it and you will lose it. It will be taken away from you. My challenge for all of us for 2022, I would like you to ask yourself, what is my interest? Let me tell you something else more profound and hitting. Your interest is not a matter of prayer. You know it. It's there. It's always at the front of your mind. It's not a matter of praying to discover what it is. That's why this thing used to elude me. It used to elude me and elude people, because people would look at me talking about this subject and they say, Pastor Ondachi, for you, it's easy to know because you're an artist, because you're a what, because you think that somebody is naturally endowed. It's not about talented people. This is about everyone. There is nobody who does not have an interest. Go and ask your house help and go and ask your askari at the gate, is this what you are really interested in doing in your life? Ask them. They will tell you no. Circumstances. I asked our askari, his name is Onesfo. I asked our askari, what is your interest? The guy said he wants to drive a Benz. Mimi niko interested na hii mambo ya magari, magari, nataka kuendesha hii Mercedes. What is your interest? Because you can settle to say, everybody has to have a job, you must be employed, kushikilia mahali, but we are not engaging God on an area of the things which interest us. The moment you start to engage God, you remember that God said, at once those people took that money and put it to work. Your interest is supposed to be pushed and pushed hard. It's supposed to be put to work to multiply. You see, like a natural talent, it's already in you. So It's not as if you need to put too much on it. Then that's where we miss this point. But there is nothing that doesn't come alive when it is put to work. The man who was working for somebody else and forgot his interest invited God's anger because he misrepresented God. And sometimes we should change even our employers. We are stealing sharpeners, we are stealing things, we are stealing their time because our interest is not aligned to the interest our boss is doing. I want to challenge somebody here today. If something about this message I'm saying to you has hit a note for you that I am not doing my interest, you may need to leave. Pursue that which is your interest. Your interest has to align people behind you. It could be in the place where you're working, you are misplaced in that job. Say, put me in another department. This is my interest. These are the things that I can champion for this organization. This is the place where I can take you. I'm better aligned for business. That's my interest. Those are the things which keep visiting me all the time. You will enjoy conversations with God when it is in line with your interest. Do you know why people find prayer boring? Because God is not even listening. You are talking to God about things you are not interested in. You are not, and God knows you are lying. I want to know what I put in you. Those are the things I want us to be discussing. Not to play politics with God, to be telling God, you know, you're sounding so spiri. You're speaking to God King James English so that he can be impressed that you're. God goes to sleep. You just need to go to God and say, God, let's discuss children. That's my interest. I want to discuss children with you. And it's true, some people could be, the people of Uko Nyanza, they are drowning, or whatever. It's like, okay, that's fine. There are people who will deal with that. For me, I want to discuss kids. God, can we just talk mental illness? Those are the things which keep coming to me. And it will come to life. There's nothing like being rich enough. I can tell you that. There's nothing like being rich enough. There's nothing. There's nothing like it. There's no limit that God put on how much you can make from your interest. And my challenge to you for 2022 is stop burying the treasure God put in you. That treasure is your interest, the things which you have undicovered here. And so I would like for Pastor Martin, Pastor Grace, and myself to turn to that list now and pray over it for you. We're going to pray according to how we pray for you in the prayer network in the morning. Each of you individually, as we bless you, as you're finishing now this prayer, that whatever you have written, I am praying to you according to your name, that is what you will embark on. Because this parable is so true and so deep. Some of you are exhausted, tired, and depressed because you have tried to be interested in your rival's interest. It won't work. You're interested because of jealousy. It won't work. You're ni wivu. You know, you're just saying so-and-so bought a big house. Me, I want also a big house like that. So you are busting your head. You are trying to do mathematics. It's not working. But God is so kind. I'm going to pray that the people who thrived during COVID, they discovered what they are interested in. That was the miracle of these times. That was the miracle of Lorraine. That was the miracle of Mato, a great businessman, but this man is a pastor. I've seen him with people. Martin is an amazing pastor. My goodness, I look forward to what will happen in Mombasa and its environs, because Martin, you are an incredible pastor. That is what COVID has given birth to. I work with Pastor Tim. This guy is an amazing campus pastor. Pastor Tim loves family. He really, really, really does. He loves family completely. It is his interest. It is his interest. I know the interest of our staff team. I know Pastor Grace's interest. I know them. And I know one who I told her, I need to move you to a department where you're going to be more productive. I told her that I need to move you because I want you at a place where I will see more of your energy. Where do you need to move? That's what I'm asking. So it's 8:05. Sorry, I've talked too much as usual. But we want to pray for you guys. We want to ask that the Lord will disturb you and cause you not to find comfort because what you're doing makes you money. That was never God's directive for you to make money. It was not just to accumulate a salary. It was to enjoy what you're doing and to change lives with it. That's what it is. I know people have a fascination for accounting and numbers, like Sheiks, Pastor Sheiks, my assistant. She is such an amazing accountant. She reads reports so clearly and is able to advise, do this, don't do that, guys. We're in the red, stop this. It's such an opposite gift for me, very opposite. A very big gifting and interest for me is dreaming. Just dream big things, ideas. I'm really powerful in ideas, very, very strong in ideas. Just this, guys, we can do this, we can do this, we can do that. And because of that, then I must rally people around me to say, guys, how are we gonna reach this idea? How are we gonna do it? It gives me joy and satisfaction to do that. Among other interests that I have, pursue that and God will satisfy you deeply. This is my word for you for 2022, that you'll find joy in taking a risk to find your space. Your space, other people are waiting to be employed by you. Can you imagine? They are waiting for you. They are waiting for you to find your interest so they can find a job. But you're too busy working for a boss you hate, trying to impress people you don't even like, for a paycheck you don't deserve, but you're busting your head because you're scared. Don't be afraid. The man who buried his treasure was afraid, just afraid. So we're going to pray, and then we will go back to Lorraine as she winds up this for us. But Martin and Grace, as usual in our morning prayers, I trust, guys, that what you have written there, I trust now that we probably have, I pray that we have about 53 of those things you've written down. As you wrote it down, you didn't know this message was coming up. God knows it. That is your interest. I just pray. We are praying prayers of 3 ministers over you, that thing is going to come alive in your heart. Pastor Grace and Pastor Martin, let's pray for our friends.
All right.
Beloved Father, we come before you in thanksgiving now. We have listened to amazing testimonies from your people. We have heard about how the year was, the last 2 years with COVID. And Father, right now, I want to bring, even in your presence, Consolata Wahungu, and whatever it is that she has brought before you. Father, I pray that which she has said would be what she does for you the rest of her life. I want to thank you for Christine. I want to praise you for Miss Ashley. I want to thank you, Lord, for Ndenya. I praise you for TKR. I don't know who that is, but TKR, Lord, you know who they are. I praise you for Yvonne Wanjiru. I thank you, Father, for Mariam. I praise you for Andreas. I thank you for June Nganga. I thank you so much, Lord, for Martin Njeru. I praise you for Kenneth Wahinya. I thank you for Njesh. I praise you, Lord, for Professor David Garoya. I thank you for Jay Gendi. I praise you for Teacher Jay. I thank you, Lord, for Lucy. I praise you for
whatever they've written
I
down,
bring
whatever
Nancy
you have
Kimani
pointed
before
out
you.
in their
I
hearts,
pray
oh
for
God,
Pastor Sheiks
that
Waweri.
apart this,
I thank you,
you will
Lord, for
begin
Pastor
to live it out in
I praise you
2022.
for
I
Mark.
thank you
I
for
thank you
Mama, I
for
thank you for
Rose
Charlene,
Shege.
I thank you
I
for Edna,
praise you
I
for
thank you for
Saul
Linda, I
Siraj,
thank
oh
you for
God.
Mercy.
I thank you,
The
Father,
Mercy, I
for
pray
Pastor
for them
Emmanuel.
that whatever
I
interest
thank you for
they have,
Natasha
the Lord you
Teye.
clear
I
it
praise you
them
for
to
Angel.
levels of
I thank you, oh
excellence.
God, for
I thank you
Imelda
for
Bono.
Margaret, I
I
thank you
thank
for
you for
Fred, I
Jane
thank you for
Wasilwa.
Abby,
I
I thank you
praise
for
you, Lord,
Claire,
for Joyce
I thank you for
Karano.
Joe.
I
I'm
thank you, Lord,
praying that
for
Papa, in the mighty name of
I
Jesus,
thank you, Father,
that
for
their
Caroline.
interest
I
this year
praise you
will
for
make
Josh
them
Sereria.
excel,
I thank you for
excel
Gibran. I
in God
thank you, Lord, for
8 million
Abigail.
people,
I
oh God
thank you for
Almighty. I thank you
Gedaliah.
for Pastor
I
Tim,
praise you
Pastor
for
Francis.
Frank.
I thank you for
For Faith
Lorraine.
Yono.
I
I
thank
thank
you
you
for
for
me. I thank
Gwenda.
you for
I thank you for
I
Simi,
pray
oh Lord.
that
I
Papa,
thank you
whatever
for
interest
Cheryl.
we've written
I
down,
praise you for
the one that
Sarah.
has come
I
to
thank you
out,
for Claire
that Papa, it
Chumba.
will
I
stand
thank you
out
for Linda
before
Karen.
the
I
nation.
praise you for Joy Mukiam,
I thank you
for
for
Joe Mukiam.
Pastor
I
Kiki. I
thank
thank
you
you
for
for
Edna,
Angel. I thank you
or
for
Serenity,
Natasha.
oh God.
I thank you
I
for
thank you
Rose.
for
I thank you
Mercy.
for
I
Saul.
thank you
I pray
for
that their
Lorraine
interest to stand
Karige.
up, oh
I thank you
God,
for Pastor
to
Tim
make them
Kagoro.
stand
I
out
praise
in
you
the
for
world, oh
Pastor
God
Grace
Almighty, that
Dege.
this
I
year
thank you for
they'll carry
Margaret
it out.
Maina.
I thank
I
you for
thank you
Mark.
for Pastor
I thank you
Martin
for Pastor
Kamau.
Sheikh.
And
I
I
thank
thank
you
you
for
even for
Eric. I
myself.
thank you for Colin.
Father,
I thank
we
you for
bring
Lucy.
ourselves to
Oh,
you.
I pray
We
that their
bring these
interest, oh Papa,
scriptures that
this
are
year will
before us to
prosper
you.
them.
We
It
come,
should
oh God, we
prosper them,
know
oh
that
God
he
Almighty.
who has
I thank you
planted
for
this idea
Nancy. I
in
thank you
my
for
mind,
Rehan.
you will
I
come
thank you
for
for Prof.
account
I
of
thank
it.
you for
But it is
Sitin. I
also
thank
your
you for Jay.
desire
And I
that
thank you for
this
Sister
very
Paul.
thing
The
which
interest
you
they
have
have
set
written
in
that
my
Papa
heart
this year,
brings glory to your
experience
name
Papa, they would
and joy
stand
to my
out.
heart as I
They would
serve you. I
they
pray,
would
Lord, that none of us
they would
shall
make it
take
in the
that
world, oh
money
God, because of
and
this
bury it,
interest.
shall
This
take that
interest would make them
interest and
prosper, oh
bury
God
it,
Almighty.
and
This
go and
interest will
serve
not
with
be
strength
forgotten,
another
but they'll
person.
work on it. I
And that
thank you
has
for Martin, for
nothing to
Jen,
do
for
with the
Kenneth, for
interest that
Miriam,
you
for
gave us.
June,
And so I
for
praise you,
Grace, for
Father, for
TKR,
each
for
person on
Yvonne,
this
for
call,
Kenya,
that we shall be people who are
Ashley.
different in
I pray whatever their
2022,
interests
that we
are,
shall be
this
blessed
year
and we
it
shall
would
be
prosper them.
glorified in our
This year it
lives,
would be
because
worked on.
faithful
This
are
year
you
they
who
would
has called us,
unbury their
and you will
talent.
do it.
And
And so we
Papa, you would
bless you,
give
we
them
honor you, we
speed,
thank you for
oh
your
God.
goodness and mercy
Yes,
over
Lord.
our
I
lives.
thank you for
Allow
Pastor
that this
Solan. I
word will
thank you for
become
Christine.
life for the
I
glory
thank
of
you,
God in
Papa.
our
I
lives,
pray for
because of your
them. I
goodness,
pray for this other
God. You
person,
have
even
made
without
things
a name,
simple
that this year their
because of your
interest,
goodness.
oh
You have
Papa,
made
would
it
take them
simple
on the
for us
globe,
to be
oh
able
God.
to
It would,
grasp our
it
interest
would,
and
they
do
would
it.
be
Father, if
noticed
there
on the
is
globe, oh
somebody
God.
here
They would
who is
prosper, oh
scared
God Almighty. They
of
would be
who are
blessed.
scared of
This is our
assignment,
prayer for each and
scared of starting
everybody.
something
We
new,
bless their
remind them that
interest.
this
We
interest
bless
is
their
yours.
interest.
It is
In the
something which
mighty
you
name of
planted in them,
Jesus.
and you've
Yes,
come for
Lord,
that
let them
accounting.
shine.
And you've
Let
done
them,
so for these
Papa,
gifts
prosper.
to make
Yes,
us
Lord. Thank you
rich
for this
and add
message
no sorrow
that
to
has
the
come this
glory
evening.
and praise of our
I
God.
thank you for
I
this
thank
promise that
you
it has
and I
come with.
honor you. In
In Jesus'
Jesus' name,
name.
we pray with much
Amen.
thanksgiving. Amen.
In Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
God bless you, everybody. Lorraine, back to you.
Wow. Guys, a round of applause for our pastor. Thank you very much. What a word. What a word. You know, I feel so challenged. You brought it home. You brought it home, Pastor. Thank you so very much. Asante. And I don't know about you guys, but this is the best decision we made to have this today and not tomorrow, 31st, today. So that then tonight you can think about this. Tomorrow you have a day to think about it. You know, as even we walk into 2022, we are walking in hope. And just before I invite Pastor Tim to do some announcements, I just wanted to say that the whole purpose of this at the end of the day, and it's so great that Pasi has brought this home, was about hope. May I just ask that we mute, please, just for a few minutes, those of us whose mics are on, so that we can all hear. Thank you. The message that we had hoped to bring home is about hope. And hope is a powerful force and probably the most important factor when it comes to overcoming life's biggest challenges, whatever they are. And without it, ladies and gentlemen, everything is lost. And they say that in certain tragic situations, only madmen can keep their hope alive. But it's that little spark that eventually pulls them from the depths of despair. Hope has the power to make you do the impossible. So even as we walk into 2022, I do not know what situation you're in right now. I don't know what you're dealing with. It could be joy, it could be pain, it could be despair, whatever it is. While it's hard to be optimistic during difficult times, think of it as your only weapon. Use it to fight and you'll eventually find your way out. Don't just sit there like Pasi has preached. It's amazing because this was my final word and what I didn't know what you're going to talk about today. But don't just sit there waiting for the worst to happen, because there's always one more thing that you can do. You just haven't thought about it yet. So thank you very much, and let's remain hopeful. Pastor Tim, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lorraine, for organizing this, man. It's been an amazing time just to be here together. Let's just give Lorraine a hand, a round of applause virtually, or you can unmute yourself. This has been amazing. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lorraine. This is really epic. You're living up to your brand. This has been an epic time just to share and talk to each other, but also hearing from God. Thank you so much, Pastor Ondachi, for just allowing God to use us so powerfully. It's given me clarity from what you've shared. I've heard this word before, but I mean, there's something about God's word in terms of the clarity it brings. And so thank you so much. And so 2 announcements, and then I'll make a prayer, and then I think we'll bring this to a close. So as we are crossing over into next year, 2022, we are beginning a 21-day fast from the 2nd of January, which is actually on Sunday. So let me say it so that we are aware. It's 3rd. Okay, yeah, thanks for the correction. Yeah, so on the 3rd of January, we are beginning a 21-day fast. And so please prepare for that. I know we've been in a mode of feasting and all that. So maybe you can begin toning down a bit as you build up to the 3rd of January for a 21-day of prayer and fasting. But also we'll resume our 4 o'clock prayers. So it will be an amazing time for us to get back together and just spend time from between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. every weekday morning. And so my prayer is to see all of us there to encourage each other as we sojourn in 2022 for the things that God has spoken to us. I love the word that has come through today. So these are the things we are going to continue praying for throughout the next year, and just seeing God do amazing things in our lives. So finally, I'll make a prayer for one of our own, Liz Karuga, who, as we speak, Pastor Grace brought it to our attention that she's currently in ICU. So I'll make a prayer for her. We all know Liz. She's been a part of our prayer chain every morning as we've been meeting. And as we speak, currently she's in hospital. So I'll make a prayer, and then I think I'll hand it over back to Lorraine to safely land the plane for us, and then we'll be done. So let me make a prayer for Liz Karuga. Our Father and our Lord, we want to thank you, Father, for the time we spent together. Thank you for your word that has come so clearly to us, oh God, to give us clarity on the things that, Lord, you've called us to do, oh God. And Lord, I thank you, and I pray even this evening for Liz Karuga, one of our own, an able person who has greatly even influenced us in terms of caring for the needy. And Lord, I pray this evening that, Lord, may you stretch your hand of healing. Father, Lord, you have said in your word that you're the Lord who heals us, oh God. By your stripes we are healed, oh God. And so, Lord, this evening, oh God, we speak healing upon Liz, oh God, in that hospital bed in AAR, oh God. I pray that, Lord, your hand of healing is going to visit her, oh God. That, Father, Lord, you're going to pull her of that sickness. You're going to pull her in the name of Jesus Christ, oh God. I pray that, King of all glory, would you, Father, continue to do your work of healing, that Jehovah God, even as a doctor, look at her, as the doctors minister to her, oh God, that your work of healing, oh King of all glory, is going to go beyond, oh Father, to do that which even the doctor are not able to do, oh Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, oh God. And when we see her joining us back together in fellowship, oh God, we will be careful to be thankful, oh God, for your goodness and your faithfulness, oh Jehovah God. And so, Lord, we bless you and we thank you because what you're going to do in and through her life, oh Jehovah God. We thank you and we bless you, for we make that prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. So over back to you, Lorraine, so that you can land us safely. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much, Pastor Tim, and everybody, all 50-something of us that were here. Thank you for taking time. I know we are all on, holiday mood and all, but you created time for this. So Asante Sana, we have a song that is to bless you even as you leave. We had two, the song that we began with, and now this is the final song, which is, taken straight from scripture, and take it as your word as you enter into 2022. From me at Epic Lorraine, thank you so very much. You guys have really been supportive. Pastor O has never missed, a single one of my events, and most of you here actually, and I really want to say thank you. Thank you, and God bless you. Happy New Year tomorrow. Baraka Telen.
Amen. Amen.
We can't hear Pastor Tim.
zifanane zote. So he did what?